open and already some action on there. We'll keep you guys updated, and we get some good posts on there.
It's kind of like voting for a president. Let's get your opinions out there and let them be heard. And
that's right.
And be part of the weighing factors.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll just have to see how it goes.
Well, and that's it's going to take a couple of races to really get this format down and get used to it. But I see some good things in it. I see some things that are hard to get used to, and we'll get used to them. Whether
we'll
they
have
make changes. Well, yeah. Whether they make changes or not, we'll see what happens. But something else I wanted to talk about was we saw, not just from the Hornets, all the way up to the late models, we saw some bad, fast cars.
Oh, we did.
And we saw a racetrack that was allowing these guys to use a lot of the horsepower under the hood.
Yeah.
The flip side of that was we saw a racetrack that wasn't exactly friendly as far as smooth.
Due to weather, of course.
Well, absolutely.
Totally
we
due
had
to weather.
so much rain this year, and again, like going back to the last race of last year, there's nothing you can do to fix that. You can grade that track, you can prep it all you want. That is going to happen given the cool temperatures, the threat of rain, all the rain we've had leading up to it.
Yeah.
We saw some pretty rough conditions.
We saw some wicked fast cars in those rough conditions, too.
Did.
I mean, we were looking at the times there.
The lap times they were turning on that track, which, does not go back to track prep at all. It goes back to Mother Nature. Given the track conditions, we were still seeing some pretty fast lap times.
Yeah.
Had that, like you said on the mic in qualifying, had that track been smooth, we might have seen somebody threaten that track record because the track was so fast.
It was, and the air, everything was perfect for a fast time.
If we could have had
had
we had good track, I think you're right. We would have seen some 13-second laps, and it would have been fun to watch.
It's going to be summer here. It's coming up on us pretty quick. Suddenly today, 80 degrees out.
Well, and then we'll talk more about that later on.
So, but our track's going to be not doing that to us like it did at the end of the last season.
Right.
Like
it's
doing at the beginning of this season.
Right. That won't be a regular thing.
Yeah.
It's just that.
That's
time
nothing
of year.
anybody doesn't already know. I'm just stating that.
It made for some interesting racing.
It did. It did.
I mean, even from the heat races, or from the dashes, even heat races, we saw some really good heat races, especially with the super late models. We saw, I think, with the street stocks.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! Did we see some action?
They're getting better and better. It's just more entertainment for your buck out of them.
It's just so crazy to see how fast the street stocks are at Willamette Speedway.
Yeah. Wicked.
Now here's something that I'll be honest, I wasn't sure how it was going to work out. So far, talking with some of the drivers that are coming off the slicks to the G60s.
Yeah.
As far as the car itself and the way it's working on the track, I had a few drivers say, hey, you know what? That tire's a whole lot better than I thought it was.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard that too.
Which, to me...
I heard the flip side of that as well.
Well, I did. I heard, but I did hear some positive about it, and people that were positive were kind of excited because they weren't, they hadn't had the experience on the tires.
They didn't come out there thinking they were going to be positive about it.
And I think you're right, yeah.
Right.
It was a change that they're not used to, and you know how racers are. A lot of them don't like change.
Yeah.
One driver in particular said, oh, my God, my car works great on those tires. And I said, really? So they were pretty excited about it. I mean, kind of cool to hear that. But then, we still heard some other drivers say,
What'd they say?
Yeah, something like that. It was something like that. But, man, when we saw some fantastic racing top to bottom in all the divisions, and I think overall, as fast as those late models are on tracks like that, God, those are fun to watch.
Oh, man. They're my favorite.
But the door handle racing, you got to.
Oh, my God.
There's
some good racing.
The street stocks are just,
I
don't know, those guys, they just do it.
They do. They're living up to everything Chris Stein had in mind.
They did.
Yeah.
Oh, man, we saw some people that surprised me and people that said, hey, no surprises here.
Yeah.
I'm fast.
Yeah.
And we're going to get into that.
Made a statement.
Big time.
Yeah.
A few of those guys did.
Yeah.
There was a couple of guys, in every division that did that.
Yeah.
So overall in the course of the night, we talked about hearing some things from the drivers, as far as feedback on the tires or the street stocks or whatever the case may be. Not all of it was bad. One thing that I think it's feedback that we can learn from with that show under those conditions, a lot of fans, a few drivers even said, hey, look, when there's a threat of rain like that, we need to put our feature cars on the track.
And, we did that back in the day.
Right.
We'd run the late model main event at, after the heat races,
and
which were after the trophy dashes back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And run the late models first, and then whatever after that, because the late models were the feature show.
Right.
And the only ones that did not get the race. It's I guess from a promoter standpoint, you want to keep the highlight for the end, but under those present weather conditions, you
do a little research. We were
in
talking
hindsight now we're looking at it like maybe we should have run the late models after the heat races.
Right.
Or
and again,
dash.
that's not something we're going to have to do very often, but maybe a time or two. Maybe at the beginning, or maybe at the end of the season. There's those times of years where that's something you've got to come into the night saying, okay, we've got this possible threat of rain.
Yeah, you just never know in Oregon, man.
You don't. But that's something that I think you can learn from, being a little more prepared as a crew. And it's something that I think we all learned a lot from this last weekend.
Yeah, there's been a lot of staff changes. Chris isn't there anymore, and some other changes upstairs, and
a lot of changes.
So
all around the track,
things didn't flow as smooth as they possibly could have. But there were a lot of bugs were being worked out, and I'm sure they're getting the attention they deserve.
Well, and I think, like you said, all the change with new personnel in certain positions, the new format, first race of the year. I mean, you kind of got your back up against the wall already going in. But all in all, I think things went off pretty well.
Yeah,
pretty
it did.
well. Other than that stupid rain, just had to show up right before. You and I were up in the Moxie Tower looking out, and how many times did we? Looking out to the crowd, people were holding up their phones and pointing. And it was the radar. It's coming.
Or looking up into the street lights, or the track lights, rather, and seeing the rain. Of course, that looks totally enhanced, like, oh, my God, it's pouring.
You see every drop. Yeah.
Right. But it stayed light for quite a while, and then it decided to let go, and that was that. There was nothing anybody could do about it,
And I got to give those guys credit. They tried and tried. I mean, they...
Up till the last second, man. They did. They
and
gave an honest effort of trying to get that on.
Unfortunately, it was one of those deals where there was just nothing you could do.
Yep.
So,
other than what we're talking about, maybe changing the format a little bit in those weather conditions.
With
and I'm sure Jerry's already thought about that.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And there's spaces we could have cut a little more time
but that's getting the bugs worked out.
But that's exactly what we're saying. First race, new format,
communication issues.
Sure.
And, I mean, there was a lot going on, and I totally expect to see the next race go a lot smoother
without a doubt.
All areas. I mean, everybody had their problems the other night. It was, the weather and blah, blah, blah. But hey, it went off pretty well.
It did, and we're praising the drivers and the teams and the staff, and how about the
fans?
Yeah, those fans stuck it out. I mean,
they did.
They were there until we had to make the announcement. Sorry, race fans. At this point, we have to conclude the show.
Yeah, and most people were like, "Oh, they weren't happy to see the rain. Nobody was happy to see the rain."
Well, they're no different than us.
That's right.
It's go time, and the fuel was in the air, and you could smell it, and you could feel the rumbling, and it was good.
It was good to get a race fix.
It was. Yeah, it was, no doubt. Something else I thought was a highlight of the night was the Dan Dybel charity situation we've got going on.
Yeah.
How cool is this?
Oh, it's awesome. Especially awesome for the charity Saturday night, which was Extreme Fire and Rescue. Man. And that, it wasn't that huge of a crowd. They raised a lot of money. There was a lot of people coming up and handing you money and Sandy money and me money, and it's like, dang.
Do you remember what the final number was?
$1,700 and something?
$1,670 went to Extreme Fire and Rescue.
Awesome deal for them, because I think Doug pretty much funds that himself, does he not? I don't know.
They do have some donations and a little bit here and there, but all that comes out of their own pocket.
Right.
Those chemicals aren't cheap. All the fire suits and the
and they already have. We talked about it up in the Moxie Tower to the crowd about how well those guys are trained and how well they respond and how awesome they are. And they are. The whole group of Extreme Fire and Rescue is is top notch. We went to, and we talked about this in the tower again, but we went to Baco and to Vegas and stuff, and nobody. I've never seen another track that even compares to Willamette's.
And that's true. I'll agree with you 100%.
Yeah, it's just and now they get $1,700 to go out and buy their foam and fuel and whatever else they need, and they'll be just that much better equipped. Means everything.
Now the way that worked out was we took in $835 in donations, and Dan Dybel matched that.
Right.
So it ended up being $1,670, and pretty dang good way. I was kind of worried there because the crowd showed up kind of late. They showed up right before qualifying.
Yep.
Waiting to see what the weather was going to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
We had one guy donate $300, and a bunch of $100 donations, and
right.
So one kid came up and donated $5.
Yeah,
it was kind of a cool deal to see little kids even get involved. But those people are important.
They're very important. Without them, there's no racing. That's all there is to it.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah, they're everything.
Absolutely right. Yep.
Love the fans.
Without them, we're doing this for nothing.
Right.
Our own personal fun. I guess. Yeah. When you're there to put on a show. I did hear now. I heard about some of the action down at Cotage Grove, and then Chris Frisbee hits us up here on the Swears chat line. He says, "Hey, the track at Cotage Grove this weekend was absolutely awesome. Smooth, slicked off, great racing, 2 grooves. Got to give a shout out to Brian Crockett for the prep." I did hear that track was just absolutely just
phenomenal.
Awesome this weekend. And we saw some video.
Yeah.
It looked good.
Yeah.
I didn't get a car count down there at Cotage Grove, but we did hear from several people, hey, the racing was good.
Yeah, never heard anything bad about the racing.
Of course, the man who mentions all this stuff right here is the guy who won the Sport Mod feature. So,
and who's that?
Chris Frisbee.
Oh yeah.
So Chris hits us up and says, "Hey, the track was great. 2 grooves, it slicked off, it was fantastic." Chris, I bet you absolutely love that track when you cross the line first. I would. I know I would.
It's like drawing the number 1 pill.
Yeah, it's a great job. I saw some great photos that were snapped of that 17 car down there, and it just from the when you see a race car working, when you see a car that's hooked up and how it sets and how it's driving. Saw some awesome pictures of Chris Frisbee's 17 car. It was just, you could tell that car is set up pretty good.
Yeah, and thanks, Chris, for all your input, man. You're always active with us.
He is.
We really appreciate that.
Yeah, and then obviously you got Gray Ferrando on here feeding us info, and Tim Archer. 2 guys that really back the show a lot. We love having these guys because some of the stuff we can't read.
We need to get. Well, I think Gray said he'd be willing to come in the studio. We need to get him in here.
I don't know if we're ready for that. We had dinner with Gray. Remember that?
Yes, I do.
Was the last
after Steve Moore's car show.
Yeah, it was. It was after the swap meet. It was all the snow on the ground. Yeah, we actually sat there. And, Applebee's with Gray and his family and his kids, and you talk about entertainment.
Yeah,
his kids are natural born entertainers, man. You will laugh.
And they get it from their dad, I'm pretty sure.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was a good time. I would love to have Gray in here. It'd be fun to have him sit down in the studio and talk racing with us.
So Gray, the door's open anytime, bud.
That's an open door. Any driver that wants to walk in here and sit down with us.
Yeah, not just Gray, anybody.
Yeah, that's we've got a schedule we work with every week, and we've got things written out, but.
We always have room for a racer to come in.
We've been known to shoot from the hip on the show quite a bit.
Been known.
Willamette winners this last week. Let's talk about that because we'll start from the fast guys and move down. Super Sport division. We saw some pretty good racing. The green flag, it looked like B.J. Donofrio was out.
It did.
That 99 car with Ford Power, Skyline Ford out of Salem. He was, gone. And then I think it was a rear spring.
Oh, yeah.
Came out of the back of that car.
Excuse me.
I think it was a rear spring.
Right rear, if I
lost the setup. Car slowed.
Totally lost it after that.
Chris Mott.
Chris Mott was
another Salem driver. Another Salem driver. Put the power on the ground, and that dude
checked out
big time.
Yeah, he did.
That 16 was pretty much in its own zip code.
It was.
The checkers flew, and I actually had a conversation with him. He says, "Oh man," he goes, sitting in that car. He goes, getting ready to take the green and seeing the rain and the lights, like you said, it enhances. You see every little drop.
Right.
He goes, "Oh God," he goes, "I was so nervous." He goes, I was so nervous to take the green flag, and he goes, we got under